and that's our final answer. Let's take a look at problem E. In problem E, we've got 3x squared plus 20x plus 5. And we've got an A of 3, a B of 20, and a C of 5. So our A times C is 3 times 5 is 15. And we need two factors of 15 that are going to add up to, let's see, 20. Well, our only options for multiplying two numbers to get 15 is either 3 and 5 or 1 and 15. Well, 3 and 5 would get me 8. That doesn't work. 3 and then 1 and 15 gets me 16. That doesn't work either. I wanted 20. So there is nothing that will work. Remember, this happens sometimes, and we say that it cannot be factored. And so we're going to call it prime. And that's it. Take a look at this next one. In F, we've got 2a squared plus 11ab plus 5b squared. And let's take a look at this. Treat the a's like x's. So we're starting out with 2 a's, then 1a, then no a, which is perfect. We're in the right order. Our A, B, and C then are the 2, 11, and 5. So A times C will become 2 times 5, which is 10. And then I'll need two factors of 10 that add up to the middle term, the positive 11. Well, that's going to be 10 and 1. So what that will do is let me split up that 11AB. So let's start out. We'll leave that 2a squared the same, and we will split up that 11AB into a 10AB and a 1AB, and then we'll leave the 5b squared at the end, and we're done. And then we'll do factoring by grouping, now that we've split up everything and that it's ready. The first two, what do they have in common? Well, they're both divisible by 2, and they both have an a. So if I pull out both a 2 and an a, I'll still have another a left over in the first piece, and pulling out the 2 from the 10 will leave me with a 5. Pulling out the a means I still will have a b, though, in that second piece. And let's take a look at those last two. Well, in the last two, let's carry down the plus, and they both have a factor of b in it, which will leave me with just an a on my first piece. And on my second piece, I'm only pulling out a b, remember. That will leave me with a 5 and still one more b. Now notice we're feeling really good about this because the a plus 5b matches, and I can factor that out. The a plus 5b, which will leave me with some leftovers of 2a plus b. And that's my final answer. A plus 5b times 2a plus b. Let's take a look at one last problem here. We've got 2x squared plus 7x minus 15. And again, our a is 2. Our b is 7, and our c is negative 15. So we've got a times c, which is 2 times negative 15, which will give us a negative 30. So that means we need two factors of negative 30 that will add up to a positive 7, the middle term. Remember, the only way to get two negative factors is if one's negative and one's positive that we're multiplying together. Well, I needed them to be 7 units apart so that when they add up, we get a 7. So the only two numbers that are 7 units apart that multiply together to give us 30 is 10 and 3. Now, the question is, do we want the positive on the 3 or the positive on the 10? Well, we want a positive 7, which means I want the 10, the bigger number, to be positive, and then the 3, the smaller number, to be negative. So again, what does this let me do? I've got a 7x and a 10 and a negative 3. So I'm going to break that up into a positive 10x and a negative 3x. And a negative 15 is going to get pulled down at the end, and the 2x squared at the beginning will get pulled down. Now, what do the first two have in common? They are both, let's see, because we're grouping now, they both have a 2 and an x, which if I pull out a 2 and an x, I'll still have an x plus 5. And let's talk about the second two. Those are both divisible by 3. The first term is a negative, so I'm going to pull out a negative 3. So pulling out both a negative and a 3, I'll be left with an x. Pulling out a negative 3 from the negative 15 is a positive 5. Let's see what I'm left with is I've got an x plus 5 in both pieces that I can now pull out as a common factor. And then whatever is left over will get its own set of parentheses. Well, I've got a 2x minus 3. So I've got an x plus 5 and a 2x minus 3, and that's my final answer. And we've covered about 80% of all the factoring types now. We've covered greatest common factors. We've covered factoring by grouping, and we've now covered a C method, which turns into factoring by grouping. We've talked about how to general factor with pulling out things that are in common. We've talked about how do you deal with 4 terms, it's grouping. How do you deal with 3 terms? It's AC method, but that turns into a group. Now, the last thing that we'll talk about is how do you deal with 2 terms. 2 terms, we're going to look at 2 specific cases, and then that's it.